Welcome to another edition of Positive Chats. This week I talk to one of my oldest clients, not in age, but the time we've worked together. His name is Jeremy Angel, part of the Angels family. They've been in business 175 years, so I have a lot to learn from him because I've worked with my brother for nearly 6 years now. We talk about all manner of things, and it's well worth tuning in. I hope you enjoy it, so let's get going. Okay, I'm here with Jeremy Angel, who I've just remarked I've been in business with in total longer than I have my brother, which is an interesting one, who also is in a family business.
I've been in business with my brother longer than you've been in business with me, though. 2009.
Yeah.
That's a long time
Just
ago.
looked at an email from me to Jeremy.
John suggested this, but he wasn't too keen on it, but thought he'd suggest it anyway, just in case you'd like to look at it. What do you think?
I think that, Are you happy or sad that the machine gun of emails has ended?
Messenger killed us. I mean, it was Messenger or Skype. It was, I think I spoke to you at the time probably more during the day than I spoke to my fiancée at the time. Even if it was just a silly thing. It was, that was, oh my god, that was ages. That was good fun.
Yeah. But now you're moving into, how long have you been in this role then? And as head of,
not head of anything. The previous role was pretty much, I've been at Angels now 7 years. Previous role, probably 5 or 6 years, because it never, the management type thing, I didn't come straight into here as a manager, so when I moved up, probably about 5 years. 5 years previous role.
And now you're moving, so what, do you want to give it a bit of a background of what that was and now what you're moving into? Because it's a big change.
It's a huge change. Everything I know I've had to be told to basically just go, that's great, forget it. Can you hire someone who can do your job? And then you have to sit in the meetings and listen to him basically pick apart everything you want. No, it's not. It feels that way. So my previous role, my title hasn't changed yet. It's still creative director. The director bit's the only bit that changed. It used to be creative manager, and then I got made director at Angels, and that changed. So what was my role? I was responsible for the online marketing and design of Angels Fancy Dress. Including liaising between SEO, PPC, affiliates, and other agencies, CRO. I'm sure there's tons of other acronyms we've used over the years. And my new role is working completely different side of the business on the film and costume side of Angels, and dealing with our customers, meeting new customers, setting them up, creating those relationships, and hopefully bringing in new business.
So a bit of a shift from two very different roles.
Yeah, but it's quite interesting. If you think, going with the way my career, or my life, it's a horrible way to say it. But the way my life's gone, I started off in film, went on to into internet, and I'm now going back into film. So it's taken me 7 years to get to where I am now, because I started working in film as assistant director, so I started as the lowest of the low, running around getting teas and coffees, to ending up as a crowd second, so organising a big amount of people, and sort of man management and event planning up to a point, I suppose, and then the fancy dress and the internet side. But I got given, it was, I had to be, it started with, I had to build a website, a memorabilia website for us from scratch. And I had zero coding experience, zero any experience. I had to lock myself in a room for 2 weeks and teach myself coding.
Nice.
And then they just kept me. I was only meant to be here 6 months. 6 months, and I was going to leave and go back to films.
And it's turned into
7 years, and I'm back into films. But
Nice. So will you take any of is there a digital element component to the job, or is it not really?
Oh, I'm going to find one. No, you can't get that. It's interesting. The interesting side on the film and TV thing is they've done everything for such a long time in certain ways. There's loads of things I can probably bring in that might help, but the digital side, it's really interesting though, because costume, you still need a physical costume, and so the marketing tools and things like that, and online, it's an interesting one. Whether we need it, it sounds such an egotistical thing, but if you're going to work in costume and film, you most of the time will know Angels, and it's a hard. You've been fighting for me to give you the costume side of the business for years. but it's just not needed.
So, well, we're the brand, I
Yeah.
guess. I guess there's, I guess you don't really want to name competitors, but you're a name that everyone knows.
In London.
In London.
In London.
Okay.
I think that's the interesting thing. For the fancy dress side in London, that's we're known. Outside London, that's still we're looking into exactly how far. But yeah, the brand is known, especially in London, for the costume side.
So are you again, probably maybe getting into too much detail, but replacing someone or moving into is it a new role?
It's no. Ever since I started, I've wanted to work film. It's not that I didn't want to do the online side of things, but my background's film. I mean, I'm addicted to film. I watch far too much. I know too much about films. And what actually happened? My marketing manager was leaving.
Yeah.
And so I was looking to start replacing her, and then my sister was having a conversation with my dad and just went, you know, Jeremy always wanted to go back onto the costume side. He's also, I've been making a lot of noises in the past 2 years that I'd like to understand it. And they decided, well, instead of replacing the marketing manager, why don't you replace yourself?
Yeah.
And then move here. And then what we've done is what they've done is they've changed some of the other positions. So I'm shadowing an existing member of staff at the moment to learn how he does his job, not to do his job, but to complement him. The other member of staff who does his job is continuing to do that, and he's also concentrating on a different side of the business. That if that grows, it means if, say, what I'm going to be doing increases and it reduces for him, and it's also a shift because my brother's role has changed in the company. So it's all happened at a really good time. Yeah. But at the same time, it happened at the worst possible time because the person was leaving at Christmas, and we were having to search for replacements in Halloween, which which is great. Sitting there running back from the website, and to have to sit there and do interviews talking about online and PPC and etc.
So there's an acronym which may not be so much part of your life now. Although I imagine are you still going to be tempted to have some involvement, or are you going to? I suppose you've only got so many hours in the day.
I've only got so many hours in the day. I already feel really strange because it feels like they're separate from me completely now because I've tried to distance. I'll try and keep my toe involved because I hired most of that department, so they're all mine.
I suppose you've got a whole new team now as well, or.
No, I'm a team of. No, I was going to say I'm a team of one now. It's different. I'll be working closely with the other people who do the job, so the other production directors. But
does this mean, sort of my lack of understanding of the Angels chain of command, but you'll be working closer with your father, or is it, or not?
It's never a case of working closer. It's always going to be the same. I'm in closer proximity. He can now shout out in the store, and I'm literally could hit me with a stone. So it's fine. So I think I will have more involvement with him, but it shouldn't sort of change things too much.
Can we talk about that at all? The family business stuff.
What do you want? I mean, it's
interesting.
It is interesting. I mean, we've done. This is an auspicious year for us. It's our 175th anniversary. So we've been doing a lot of research into the family. I mean, to end it all in 2 weeks' time, we get given a BAFTA, which is crazy.
That was I've got to ask you about that. How much did you know about that, or was it a surprise, or what was that?
We didn't know about it because we didn't. It was to say, I was upset that we hadn't heard anything last year or anything like that. That personally, because it was like we're 175 years. We've been working, but then there were discussions obviously going on within BAFTA. But then until they'd made the decisions, they didn't let us know. So we probably knew 3 weeks before the press release and BAFTA announcement. As in, when I say we knew, my dad, my brother, my family knew because they've been dealing with my dad. And then we told everyone the day it got announced. So awesome. We didn't know. It's like we've not been sitting on this massive secret for a year. And it's great, and all the staff are really happy about it. They've been getting messages from their friends and family, and the biggest thing for us with this whole thing, which sums up Angels or sums up my dad, is when he spoke to the entire staff to tell them, it was a case of, look, BAFTA are awarding us with this award, but you need to know that this award isn't for the Angel family. This award is for everyone who's worked for Angels, who's come before you, for you guys. And it's the first time that we know of someone like us has been recognised. So it's great.
It's really interesting. When I was looking at the, this is more actually to do with the family but the business as well, of looking at the history and then just the
the amount in particular, the amount your dad did, like of the organisation of the board and the moves that he made to get to this, because you weren't always the biggest
no,
name,
we weren't.
because a lot of it was...
The worst thing, I mean, I say a lot in interviews, and I don't know truly whether he's ever listened to those interviews or he takes in it. He's leaving some massive shoes for whichever one of the three of us fills them, if it's going to be one of the three. What he's only done for this business, and actually a lot of people don't know what he's done for the industry. It's huge, because in his time he's been a trustee at the BFI, he's been chairman of BAFTA. I mean, if you ignore the Angels for a second, this thing, the one thing everyone now knows about, you get the BAFTA awards first, and then it comes the Oscars.
Yeah.
He's responsible for that.
Yeah.
He's the one, because originally the BAFTA awards used to be TV and film. It used to be like a 3-4 hour long ceremony where everything was there, and you never used to get any of the actors, not all the actors turning up. It was really difficult to experience.
Yeah.
My dad went in and he split everyone was arguing against it. He split the TV and the film awards in half, so they were separate. He moved to the film awards to be before the Oscars, and so all the changes he made have made a massive difference. And the other thing is, they had to change or pass a ruling, because the BAFTA constitution or something says the chairman is only allowed to be chairman for 2 years.
Yeah.
They asked him to do 3 years. Yeah. So there are only 2 BAFTA chairmen at then 3 years. One was the very first chairman, which was Sidney Samuelson. Second's Tim Angel. I mean, it's like, okay, so away from the family business, that's a huge thing that he's done. But with the family business, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the history of Angels, the story, we started in 1840. However, we've been going longer. Yeah. So my relative who came over from Germany in 1813 was a tailor, but did the work. But the company itself wasn't set up until 1840 by his son. We've gone through, because of that, I am the 7th generation to work in the business. And because of the 175, we've traced the history, and we've seen most company business. Okay, so fair warning for you. Usually, family businesses come the 3rd generation. That's when the problem starts. Because the first 2 generations are always people who have a passion for the industry. Yeah. The 3rd one is normally a child of one of those people and just expected it or accepted that that's how it is, and they go into it for maybe financial. They didn't have any other reasons, but that's normally where it falls down. 3rd generation, and that's the way it falls down, and also outside influences, as in partners, because you then get, well, why has John got that new car and I've only got this? And John went to Barbados and we went to Bognor, and you should be asking for all of this, and so partners gibbering away. So the fact that we lasted 7 generations is incredible, and what we've only hit within that family business, so about the 4th, 5th generation, I mean, you had the point where a daughter got her father committed to an insane asylum, to an asylum for what today we call depression. So she basically committed her father for being depressed, took over the family business, refused to employ one of my relatives because he had polio, and to quote, we weren't going to have a cripple working for the company. Sorry, an invalid. An invalid. Working for the family business, and the notes from the AGMs and all the meetings they had, they were arguing about money that they wanted to spend on themselves.
Have you got these records?
Oh yeah, we've got these books. My dad's gone through them. I mean, and it's so she almost destroyed the company. So what happened was, business was going and it got passed on. I mean, we were one of the first businesses to be on what's now Shaftesbury Avenue, because we were there when they were built, when it became Shaftesbury Avenue. So the family were doing a lot of theatre and musical. That's where it all started, and then things just kept growing. We were royal appointed tailors, which meant the Navy and the Army. Sorry, the Army we do costumes. We do uniforms for the sergeants and all the higher ranks of the Army, so they just come into us. So we were doing really, really well, and then what happened? It usually get left to the sons of the family business, but one of the relatives preferred his youngest son
Yes.
to his oldest son.
I remember this, and the youngest was not.
The youngest didn't really want to go into it
Yeah.
and wasn't probably the best person.
Yeah.
And then what the relative did was he basically created the document to rule how angels worked. So there was the list of rules. But so when he died, he was basically controlling the family still from the grave. And part of the law, the rules for working here was there was no female member of the family was allowed to work for the business. That was one of the bylaws. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And so that's when it all sort of started going downhill.
Yeah.
Then the Second World War happened, and a lot of the people who were in the family business, including my grandfather, went to war. And then they came back, and the business had been going through really, really hard times.
What happens when they went away to war? Did the business? It's certain members.
I mean, the thing was the people they lost. For example, my grandfather was a cutter,
Yeah.
so it was a huge person to lose from one of the senior tailors.
Yeah.
And it's hard to replace because then there was obviously a shortage of the men doing that. But then a lot of the work would have dropped down as well, and it would have changed what was going on. But they weren't running it properly. They were only looking out for themselves, not the business.
Yeah.
So when my grandfather came back and they refused to let my relative, because he had polio, come into Angels, my grandfather couldn't stand the infighting. They wouldn't let his brother, so my great uncle, go into the business either. So my grandfather set up his own business at Angels of Warwick Street at the same time as you had Angels, and basically the company was on its last legs, and they went back to my grandfather to say, come back. This is a few days later, and he had a few conditions. One was this woman who'd committed her father wasn't allowed to, had to step down. And all of this, and his brother, and so that was the first thing. My grandfather coming back was the first step, and then my dad started, and he had to learn things really, really quickly. And he had so many things to deal with. He had a fire. He had
the big
fire we had in 89. He had the getting rid of my great uncle to getting him out of the company. My grandfather dying. He's dealt with 2 massive moves. So he's dealt with a lot of things for Angels.
Has it just been like thrust upon him to deal with this in it? Because people probably listening don't know the decisive way your dad does business. But they've had this thrust upon him that he had to deal with make a lot of big decisions quickly.
But no, because he started from the ground up. My father started as the lowest of the low here, and trained up, and wasn't given any. You can't say he wasn't given any preferential treatment. His surname was Angel, but he wasn't. He had to train. But my dad joining Angels happened at the same time that the TV boom sort of kicked off, and the BBC started making a lot of changes, and so I think my grandfather at the time looked at TV and didn't see the potential of it, and so went, it's okay, Tim, you can deal with TV. So he was going around BBC House and getting to know all these things and getting involved there, and so that started, and so he was involved with all that. So he worked his way up, but there were loads of things and changes, and he had to take it. When my grandfather died, when my uncle left the business, my great uncle left the business, my dad had to learn pretty much within the next 2 or 3 days how to read a balance sheet, because he was the accounts guy. And so we just fired the accounts guy. So he had to learn all of that himself. And my dad's fantastic with maths and history, but he still had to learn. He had no idea, and so he taught himself how to do it before we then got my mum's brother, so my uncle, who is now the FD, working here to do that. But so he's had a lot of things to learn, and you're right. My dad has purchased the best, the 2 to really mention are Bermans and Nathans, who were actually 2 companies in themselves. Originally they were Bermans and a separate company of Nathans. So he purchased Bermans and Nathans, which was a huge thing because that was one of the main competitors. Someone complained to the Monopolies Commission, and we had an investigation whether it was a monopoly, which was so much fun. I remember it just at home as a small kid, and so we purchased Bermans and Nathans, and more recently we purchased the BBC costume department. On top of that, we've moved from central London to Camden, so moved the entire company there. Then moved from Camden to the building we're in now in Hendon.
This is with the how many miles of costume?
8.5.
8.5. So moving the entire
Yeah, the
Yeah.
entire building to
Yeah,
here.
crikey.
Not an easy feat.
No.
So he's done that, and he was petrified about that because all the times he's done the moves before, he'd had my grandfather and he had several senior members of staff
Yeah.
who've since left or retired.
It's hard to imagine your father petrified.
Well, the funniest thing with my father with that was if you go into the warehouse, you'll notice there's on one of the walls there's loads of hats hanging, and there's no reason. There's not like a reason that all hats should be kept hanging the way they are.
Yeah.
But what happened was he'd gone home and he was watching TV with my mum, and they were watching a period drama, and a guy walked in, took his top hat off and put it under his arm as they did. My dad just went white.
Yeah.
He'd forgotten where we were going to put the hats in the building, and everything had moved in, so there was no room for the hats. And so he was freaking out with it because of one man walking with a top hat, and that's how that's why the hats were stored the way they were stored. But my dad panicked. Yeah, that's it.
Excellent.
Nowadays you don't see it that much,
Yeah.
but it works perfectly for my dad. And what you're getting at with the way my dad works is he sits at the top of the tree, and it's a great. You can look at it from another way. It's a great way of running a business. Everyone can tell him, "Oh, we should do this, we should do that." He makes decisions, and you go. It's no bottlenecks or anything.
Do you have? I know that it's only recently been in this new role. Did you come to it with a vision, or are you still very much, I've got to learn this, and then, or have you got it? Is there a direction that you want to take it in, or is that not?
It's no direct. I want to know how the film and TV side of Angels works first and foremost, and for that to happen, I need to know how we get customers in, and that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
At the same time as doing that, I will be trained again as in the costume department, because I've already gone through that once.
Yeah.
To understand costume, just to get a better understanding. I know how the online side works. I know the fancy dress side, but I want to know the other side of the business. But I love film, so it's always been a. So
how did you? I mean, just seeing how the whole organisation works. How do you plan ahead? Far in advance as an overall like board meetings. How far ahead do you plan, or is it?
It's hard to plan like that because you've got when the film side is you've got no idea what films are going to be made this year until they come, and you're still not guaranteed they're going to come to us.
Yeah.
So you can't plan that side. Fancy dress you can plan a little bit. Yeah. So we do have AGMs. Yeah. Every year, and we sit down, we talk about things, but it's. The planning is the best thing is controlling how we do things, and there are those sort of plans, but I've not really been involved in those because I don't know the costume side. Well, I'm now starting to be. So
here's a question. We were going to create some content around this, but I'll just ask on this podcast instead. Is there certain family members you work better with, or does it?
My family are going to hear this.
No, probably you don't have to answer that one.
No,
it's a difficult one.
The easiest answer for that is I only really, up until now, I've only properly worked with my sister.
Okay.
So I've only had interaction with my sister. I'm starting to now have interaction with my brother.
Yeah.
Actually, I've always had interaction with my uncle.
Yeah.
But no, I'll plead the fifth.
Yeah, actually, I've never had any troubles working with my brother, so it's. I guess you can. You
tell me this. How do arguments go?
We don't really argue. We have. We used to, even now. It used to be maybe like email chains where we'd hammer something out, but we've never had like shouty. But then I guess neither of us are that type of person. Like it would take a lot. So
maybe that's the difference. We're very vocal.
Oh really?
We're very vocal. But no, it's that's the one thing, and I think it's an advantage. I really think it's an advantage in the family business, which is I can argue with my sister to the cows come home. I could argue with my brother to the cows come home. And the thing is that people don't realise is I could have a really bad row with one of them. Yeah. And you sit there and go, if I had that with anyone else I work with, you wouldn't speak to them for like 2 or 3 weeks. And because it's my brother and sister, it's like 45 minutes later, you're coming over for dinner tonight. So
that's really cool. So you've definitely got a switch on.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely
These are different roles.
Yeah, I have...
Different hats.
Yeah, different hats. But I definitely have it with Emma, which is my sister. Clearly, if I had a brother called Emma, it'd be very strong. But we make it to go out our way that after we finish, well, up until recently, when we finish work, we normally phone, one of us will phone each other, just to have a 5 or 10 minute conversation, not about work.
Yeah.
so we can do, because I see them every day. I have lunch with them.
Yeah.
I walk my dog with her when she
Yeah.
walks her dog, and so it is needing a break.
That's a good idea. I think for not just for family businesses, but if you work with close friends as well, to have that.
You've just got to have something to say. There is more to this than just work, and because work can take it's impossible. Everyone goes, "Oh yeah, I won't talk about work at home."
Yeah,
You're going to
it's
talk
impossible.
about work. It's
It's probably the largest chunk of your life is spent at work. So
true,
yeah.
but if you want, my grandfather, he could, to the point of when we were on holiday, my dad gets a phone call, speaks to my grandfather for about 5 minutes, hangs up. 10 minutes later, gets another phone call from his sister, and she goes, "Are you okay?" And my dad's like, "Yeah, why wouldn't I be?"
Yeah.
She goes, "Well, have you spoken to Dad?" "Yeah, he said everything was okay, and there was a few issues, but he was dealing with it." She went, "There's been a fire." And my grandfather would never discuss work outside. If you're on holiday or at home, work doesn't get spoken about. And we had a massive fire that basically shut us down. And he never told them. So he kept it. My dad's very different. I've always grown up with work being talked about. And it drives my fiance crazy at times that I'm still switched on when I'm at home with work. But it's the nature of it. If my dad's going to phone up and say, if I wanted to do this on the website, could I? Is it better I just say, yes, because, or go, I'll talk to you tomorrow.
And the technology these days, I guess, with email. Like, I remember when I went on holiday, Gary did turn my email off once. That's probably,
It's fine, as long as you have that break, because it is hard not to. It works. It does work. But it's not saying I argue with people the way I argue with my brother and sister at work, but I can. But that's the hardest thing, actually. The hardest thing for me to realise was sitting in meetings with my dad and going, and wanting to argue, and then going, he's not your dad here, he's your boss. That's the hardest thing.
I remember one meeting, and this will bring me on to, speaking of Benjamin, just mentioning him so he has to listen to this. I remember being in a meeting with him and realising my best bet in this meeting is to say nothing. And just because I just watched all of these other people get annihilated, and I stayed quiet, and I think I did the best in that meeting.
Because if I remember rightly, you waited to the end, and at the very end, my dad then asked you a question, and you were completely fine and just went da-da-da-da. So after the meeting, it's like, that John guy, he's calm. It's just like,
just waited the clock out.
Well, but my dad's also it's nothing. It's just people don't know how to deal. It's not that difficult to deal with. He has his opinion. That's what he wants. And if you're going to tell him anything different, it's give him the reasoning, and then that's it. And he's got a very I'd say a very good sense of humour. He's got a very unique sense of humour. And if you get it, you're completely fine. And hence the other, what you've not said, and if you get Benjamin to listen to this, it will make more sense, is you sat in this meeting when, at the time, the gentleman who runs our PR company wasn't always sure when my dad was joking or not. Now, if I'm doing Ben a disservice, he might always be aware and just does it for effect, which if he does, he's got all of us fooled, or had all of us fooled. So you just sat back and watched because you knew my dad was joking with making these comments of, well, if you don't do this, we're going to look for another company, and you were just enjoying that. And bless him, Ben wasn't. But
how did you get to start with Benjamin? Probably one of the most innovative PR.
Benjamin Webb, with Deliberate PR. No, he is. He's phenomenal, and it sounds a strange thing when you speak to certain people, you always walk away from the conversation like you learned something. Or always with Ben, it's always interesting. His view on things is brilliant. Ben used to work for another PR company, and who were working with Angels at the time. This is before I started, and he didn't, as far as I understand, he didn't like the direction that company were going, so he left to set up on his own. And he went to my dad and said, I'm going to do this, would you be willing to, I think he didn't ask it straight out, and my dad figured out during the meeting what he was asking. He said, are you asking if you would set up, would we come with you? Of course we would. And then they set up their offices in our building, so they were here for 2 years. And that's how we started working with Ben. So we were his first client.
I remember probably my favourite campaign, the Pardon the Witches campaign.
Pardon the Witches. He just comes up with just such clever little things. And the one thing I've always found fascinating with the online thing is everything you want to do, you always want something to go viral. Everyone does. And I have to admit, with us, the success rate he's had with getting things picked up has been incredible. But yeah,
he has a mind for it.
He does.
But speaking of people that have offices, or I'm not sure if it's still, you've had the charity that you're involved with.
Yeah, just
that's another.
They're still
another
based
really exciting character that.
Phil. Phil's brilliant, and I mean, I've never. If you ever meet Phil Knight, he's just, his energy is phenomenal. His drive is ridiculous.
Could you give a little bit of introduction to the
charity?
Yeah.
So basically, I'm involved in a charity called Just Enough UK, and it's actually, the remit's slightly changing, but our main thing at the moment is to go into schools and educate kids about human trafficking and human slavery.
Yeah.
Which you sit there and listen to and go, I wouldn't let you go talk to any kids about human trafficking and slavery because you'll scare them. But he's found a way to do it with jokes, with dance, with humour. Well, that's jokes, but in a lively, fun way.
Yeah.
And the kids learn it, the kids understand it, the schools invite us back.
Yeah.
We're now the we've been told we're the largest provider of education of this sort in the world.
Yeah.
That we don't obviously have the stats for. To prove in the UK we do, but to be told that was phenomenal. And so Phil, who runs it, who's created the whole thing and taken it forward, he's like that the whole time. And you know something's wrong if you don't see that little spark in his eye, because he's not thinking about what you're talking about, because he's thinking about something else, and which is great. He's absolutely phenomenal. And
how have you found working as part of a charity compared to, obviously you've always been in business, is it very similar, or is it?
I've never felt something more rewarding than working for the charity.
Yeah.
I mean, I genuinely enjoy what I do at Angels, but when I work with them, it gives me, it's just a different feeling as well, and you're making, it's such a cheesy phrase, you're making a difference, but I know I'm not making a difference, but with what we're doing and what we're agreeing and what we can let him do, he's making a massive difference.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you can sit there and go, I've allowed 20,000 kids, I've not been allowed, I've helped get 20,000 children in this country educated on one thing. It's phenomenal, and it's him, and it's my mum and dad, I think, are actually the worst. So I sound like I'm like 12 again. My mum and dad was so happy that I got involved with charity, because they've always done charity work, because it's just a different experience. It really is, and I just can't explain.
That's something I need to think about, maybe.
Well, there's loads of it. I mean, I've gone to different charity events, like Rainmakers, a fantastic organisation that introduce people to charities that need something, be it their money, their time, or their contacts.
Yeah.
And just listening to those charities and meeting them, even if it's a brief conversation, to go, oh, look, you should speak to this company, they're really, really good.
Yeah.
That's great. And
I've always actually wanted to do that, use the knowledge that I've got for
good.
For making more money, but you know what I mean. I always bring it back to when we're helping the economy go. But I've wanted to do that for a while. So your work-life balance is pretty good then. Do you think you've split it pretty well, or do you think?
I don't know. My other half will say differently. I'd say it's pretty good. It's not too bad. I've got it quite nicely done. And what's been incredible over the years is my friends have adapted to my workload, so they know during Halloween, the month of October, I'm just don't speak to Jeremy. There's no point.
I've always put it as that's for everyone, for every other retailer. Christmas is Christmas. Your Christmas is
Halloween.
It's Halloween.
Yeah. So it's it's okay. So my other half will argue, but I'm always fiddling around on the computer looking at something to do with our servers or something like that. But that's the geek in me.
Yeah, I wanted to just on a humorous note. I remember one year in the this is more in store. The I don't know if we can talk about this out loud, but the famous sayings when it's really busy, the quotes from people. Is the upstairs or something like that?
We had some pearlers. Do these stairs go up? That was one.
I love that.
What colour's your black hairspray? Is your fake blood real? And the personal favourite, now you to realise what this is, at Halloween, if we work in the shop, we dress head to toe in fancy dress, covered in blood and makeup. And without fail, every year someone comes up to you and goes, do you work here? And you just want to go to them and go, no, I'm here on day release. It's like...
I'm just a mad person that this is how I dress.
Yeah, but then the worst is you forget you're dressed like that, so you go out for lunch So you could be sitting in McDonald's, caked in blood, and just standing there, like Big Mac and cheese, and they're just looking at you, eyes wide.
Because it's not Halloween yet.
It's not Halloween yet.
It's
the 2 weeks beforehand, and then you sit there going, "What? Oh, yeah."
That's really funny.
So
yeah, I once I've seen people in like Batman and Joker outfits and McDonald's getting looked at, but yeah, that's going to be funny. The 2 weeks running up and you're just looking like a complete maniac.
yeah, it's an interesting thing, but a lot of the stores got used to it. So what used to be really fun was there was one restaurant that used to be on opposite us, which closed down this year, which really upset me.
Yeah.
The staff knew us, and so they would be fine. So you'd be queuing up to get there, and everyone in the queue would be giving you really dodgy looks.
Yeah.
And the staff wouldn't care and wouldn't be treating you any differently. So you just have a group of, how you doing? Everything all right? How's work? And everyone else just sitting there looking at you going, what the hell do you look like?
That was one of my cool... I've never had the thing, the VIPs in nightclubs where, not that I go to nightclubs anymore, but where you can get right in front of the queue.
Now, I know. Gary says you're never in the office, you're out listening to like a house rave at like
of course,
4 in the afternoon.
that sounds exactly like me. But just the massive queue at Angels and Halloween and just having to go right to the front and getting in. That's the closest I've had to
We have security now, so we've got bouncers and everything.
It's crazy. So you're moving into the new role. Yes. Still excited and pumped about it.
I'm really dreading. No, I really am. I'm looking forward to it, and it's just to see how it works and to get back into the world of film. It's going to be fantastic. And the thing that works perfectly is some of the people I used to work with are now the people who are working with Angels.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just getting to know an old friend again, and which is great.
So, okay. Well, I think we've been all around the houses there. I think
how long have that been on?
There's 36 minutes. I think
enough.
it's pretty good. Unless there's something, I don't know if there's anything you want to...
I don't know what you're wanting to cover. Are you wanting me to go more about how the online stuff's worked here, or...
Yeah, we can do actually. Let's skip right back to Fancy Dress.
It's your podcast.
Yeah, because we've talking about, I guess we're all render positive, so we should talk about some digital stuff for a bit. What was it? I guess, can you remember what it was like? You've been here before in a way, learning about a totally new discipline, and you've learned about SEO, PPC, CRO, all of this stuff. I guess, is it comparable then? And will you miss working those skills? How did you integrate the first time?
No, it's different. It really is, because I think the world, that side of things, is evolving the whole time.
Yeah.
So what you could learn this year about SEO could be complete. You need to forget next year because it's got a negative effect. So there was an aspect of I had to keep up to date with everything when I was learning. So you were always learning, which I loved. Learning something new, reading new articles, all of that. Yeah. This job, once I understand what's going on with it, it's the same. It doesn't change that much. What will change is how we do certain things, like instead of writing something down, we might have an iPad. But the harder part for me will be learning the costume side, the actual costume, literally brushing the cobwebs out my head and learning what Regency costumes look like and what you could shoot.
You're still going to be interested in it. I can imagine you're still going to read digital marketing news and stuff, because that's still going to interest you, and as you say, it is somewhat of an interesting area, always changing.
Yeah, so it's just, I think when I was on that side of things, and so I was learning, if we start with the PPC and affiliate, because before, when I started, no one knew what SEO was. Before I met you guys, we had no idea what SEO was. My life was so much simpler. But no, and it was just very interesting learning it, because it was something new that had this potential, because back then it really was, no one understood it. So it was like, and at the time there weren't the explosion of companies doing all this stuff, and the competition for every business was really small. So you could little changes that you could make would have massive effects. And learning something from scratch that was this new computer this whole internet, and Google, and understanding that was scary. It really was.
I mean, you had you really thinking about it, you had a lot under your remit of the different disciplines, and I know that we made the joke that you couldn't have everything perfect.
Yeah.
There was always one of them would always be an issue.
It used to always be the case that there was like everything was we've got the SEO right. Oh God, there's something wrong with PPC.
Yeah.
Oh right, we've got PPC right. There's something wrong with this conversion.
Yeah.
There was always something, but but that was a great thing. I had to learn all these disciplines.
Yeah.
But it was also, you could look at it as a negative because it meant I never specialised in anything to be able to.
But you even had to deal with like DDoS attacks and things.
It's my brain. I like learning new things. I like tech stuff, and what the other way is, it's the way we used to say with agencies when we work with agencies. We're a family business. We prefer relationships. The relationships are very important to us. Yeah. However, on top of that, it's hard to get those relationships and to be very trusting of someone who's given to you, they're going to be your account manager. It takes time. Yeah. I mean, you and I hit it off from day one, but it doesn't always happen that way. And so I had to learn it because I didn't trust people to say, well, this is what's happening. So, and the DDoS thing was a perfect example because we went to switch to a hosting company, and if I hadn't learned about the DDoS information before we went to them, when we eventually got DDoSed, got attacked. I could argue with the person going, you can't do anything. Well, you can do X, Y, and Z. And so from that side, that's why you do it. And in a small business, that's one of the negatives we've had at Angels in the past, which is my hat. I'm IT manager, I'm marketing, I'm design, I'm
it's comms.
I'm internal IT support. I'm responsible for all the auctions of the film and TV costumes. I'm my family's Apple conduit, so any Apple iPhone issues or computer, that's me. And there's loads of different things, and you can't concentrate on one. So you could plan to do something one week, and I'd never get near it because there were just too many little things. And it's great because in one sense you know everything, but it's really bad in another because you can't concentrate just on one thing.
Would you, if you had any advice for people going into digital marketing and then secondary into the world of costume film, would you? What
because it's not a niche idea at all.
What advice would you give to those two parties?
It's be open to learn new things, and you've got the whole point. The thing I've always said is, I've got it up there, that there are no stupid questions, only stupid people asking them. I mean, but no, the serious one is you learn from your mistakes, and you can't be embarrassed to make a mistake, because that's one. But the biggest one, which you guys know more than anything, be honest. And if you've done something, if you don't know something, hold your hand up and say you don't know something. And so that's the bit of advice I would be. It's just basically be very open to other people's opinions. Be honest about where your limitations are. And just keep.
I think that's in my recommendation on LinkedIn from you, is that very nice praise, but that I would, and I always do, hold my hand up when something went wrong. And you get so much more credibility if you do that rather than trying to.
But it's doing it at the right time as well, because it's a case of if something goes wrong, it's not the case of, well, you did that, oh, I'm sorry. No, it's more the case of, and the reason with you, what happened is you'd come up with these mad ass ideas, like Pirates v Ninjas are huge. We're going to do something with Pirates v Ninjas. Didn't work, and you'd phone up and after the first day and go, this isn't going to work the way I thought it would. I think it's because of this. I'm going to look into it. We'll keep going.
It was a long time ago, but I was still even then testing the content marketing stuff probably. So it's you should view it as I guess I've read this the other day. Instead of failures, call them experiments. Granted, it was experiments with your budget.
It's hard to look at it from this side. It was just an experiment. But no, that's what I mean, because I think that's the difference. There's honesty and sitting the whole time going, look, I'm sorry, it was me. But there's being able to actually hold your hands up before we ask the question. That's honesty. Instead of sitting there going, they won't notice, or we can hide this, because that's the biggest issue you have. Working with agencies. Is they don't realise that, some people don't realise that it might only be £1,000 a month that we're spending. That's a lot of money to us. Therefore, you need to treat it like, you need to treat me the same way you treat £1 million.
I've always thought of it, and I've said this on another podcast, of you have to realise it's a privilege to work with clients. And there's very rare cases where you have to have these clients that are pretty sociopathic. That's very rare, but generally you should view it as a privilege, and that's how I've always seen it.
Yeah, and as long as you have that, it works. And as long as there's that, it's a mutual respect.
Yeah.
And that allows things to happen. That allows the relationships to happen, because you're not... We started, you didn't... I don't know how you saw Angels when we were given to you guys, but it was a case of you treated Angels as if it was your own company.
Yeah.
It's little things like that that really put your mind at ease, because it's in all the meetings referring to, instead of going Angels, you were saying we and us, not you.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it. That it's like a natural.
It's a natural thing,
Yeah.
and the best example is when we sat down with the conversion company that we work with, Conversion. And I've told them this the first time. We walked into this, we knew we had a conversion issue on our website.
Yeah.
I'd spoken to a few people I highly respect within the industry, and I mean, one of them is probably the top of the industry you could get to.
Yeah.
And I said, what should we do? And they said, you need to find a conversion issue. I spoke to you guys, you recommended this company. So we sat down, went to the meeting, so I thought, okay, I'll take my dad with me, because he needs to hear this, and Jeffrey, who's the FD, he'll come as well. So we walk into this meeting, and it's a very, in Farringdon, so it's very, not hipster, but very cool and trendy place for all these new businesses. Walk into the massive open plan office with a glass section with a Wii in the corner, with Rock Band out, and I'm sitting there going, oh no, I brought my dad in. And then the guy sitting opposite us, he looked, Dave looked so young. You've met Dave. Looked 12. He really, really did. So we're sitting down, and he's like, I'll be the one looking up if it works. We're going. I'm sitting there going, my dad's going to kill me. This guy is so young.
Yeah.
And then Stephen walked in and starts talking to us. And again, we've been looking through the website, and what we think we should do is this, and this, because and then when Dave didn't speak a lot, but when Dave spoke, it was. I've got the experience of doing it, and it was just the way they spoke to us, and they realised, because I'd spoken beforehand and said there's no point in blinding us with science. And it didn't matter that he looked 12 and we were in an open plan office. My dad was sitting next to a drum set for Rock Band.
Although I would love to have seen his expression because he was in there initially. But.
Yeah, and so that makes such a massive difference. I don't, as you said, I don't know if you guys realise it or it's a sales technique, but when you talk as if the company is your own and you treat the money like it's your own, you can't but trust someone like that. But if you were never there when I need to speak to you, and every time I did you sounded distant.
Yeah, it was probably the other way around. I probably chased you more than... I remember I would have a go at you and I was finding ways.
But then things have reversed. When there are certain people that you can't motivate, you sort of sit there and go, so could you...
Write an angry letter.
You know you want to blow gas at someone, can you do it in paper, but to me?
It's an old technique that worked to our advantage many times.
It did, but that's the thing, and the relationships are the foundation of it, because if your agency's doing really badly with us but there's the relationship there, you're more likely to get the second chance rather than just go...
If there's nothing there, it's there's the...
So it's again the trust, that's the biggest thing.
And I guess the second one, and maybe it's too soon to ask people, film and TV, you just have a passion for it, I guess. So that's why you're in the sector and moving back into it.
Yeah, it's just a passion I want to understand. So it's a massive... I've got the film and TV industry's got huge changes in the middle of it. I mean, if you think about what Spotify's done for music, film and TV it's. I know some people go on Netflix and Amazon. It's still not reached to the level of what's happened with music, and that's a massive thing for us. Technology is a massive factor for us. We supply costumes, and think about CGI.
Yeah.
You don't need us because you're going to recreate it. So we've got to face that issue, and it's an interesting thing.
Technology's changing, disrupting every industry, so why would it not?
And everyone always forgets that what you need is someone from outside the industry to actually come in. That's what's happened in the music industry. It's what happened with taxis.
Oh, was that started by... No, that was Halo.
But Uber, the way you want the disruptors to come in, but you do sit there at the time. We're one of the old guard. The Angels are an old guard. 175 years of business, but you need.
No one's ringing you. I always found it funny. This is one of Roy Sullivan's quotes. There's a builders that's existed for, I think, even longer than that. And he's really tempted to call them up and say, "Are you some fly-by-night salesmen that are going to scam me.
We're the old establishment, I suppose, with costume, and you've got to embrace it, but you've got to be aware of it. And there are some massive changes coming to film.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Tangerine last year. Tangerine, it was filmed solely on an iPhone.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Did you see the? This is kind of different, but have you been following Serial or the podcast?
Yes. Do not tell me anything about it. I'm waiting. I will not download just one episode and listen to it and then have to wait.
What do you think about that long form?
I love
non-fiction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's because it's me the way I am. I like to understand why I'm doing something and the reasoning, and the long form really doesn't. But Serial, I love Serial and I hate it for the same reason. One, I love it because it made more people realise about podcasting.
Yeah.
I hate it because it's made more people realise about podcasting.
Yeah.
So
they innovated in it in form, which I like, because no one had really done that before. It's very rare that they really did.
And then look what they've done for TV. The knock-on with Making a Murderer.
Oh yeah, did that follow Serial then?
No, Making a Murderer came after, but you could make the argument they've been collecting the information for longer than Serial.
Yeah.
But it's the same sort of logic.
As I told, Serial was influenced by Thin Blue Line. The Thin Blue Line, the old documentary.
Oh, I was about to say, not the Rowan Atkinson TV series. How has Rowan Atkinson figured it out?
And you've got to pretend you know that link.
Yeah.
And no, the documentary. Yeah. Do you like documentaries? Like, let's get into the personal.
Yeah, I love documentaries. I mean, I have to admit, this year with BAFTAs, my personal feelings. I think some of the documentaries are far better than some of the major films. But it's my problem. What drew me to documentaries? I loved sports films, and then you start on sports films, and you get the sports biopics, and then you go to the dark documentaries, and you're like, oh, let's go further than this. And I love it, and I love when other worlds collide with it. So there was the Foo Fighters TV series last year that accompanied, really 2 years ago, they accompanied their album release, and that each episode was an hour and a half long, and each song was dedicated to a different. It was written about the musical history of a city, and Dave Grohl spent each program teaching you about the history of that city. Phenomenal.
That's really cool. I want to check that out. What's that called?
It's Sonic Highways.
Okay, cool.
Highways.
I'll check it out.
So things like that. So I've always had a massive appreciation for documentaries, and it's even weirder because that's what my aunt does. She's she's a producer. And she produces documentaries, and she's just done. Last year she did Night Will Fall, which was award-winning documentary, which is incredible, and that's all she does. And I love. It's watching something that's going to educate you, and then I like that. But then the worst side of it when you watch documentaries, after you've seen it, I know everything. I can argue with you.
So that's probably one of the biggest, most interesting way of digesting information. The documentaries. I
actually find I learn it more from podcasts than I do from film.
Podcast is good.
Yeah, just because I'm not watching it, and with a podcast, I now can't do loads of tasks while listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
I've got to listen to them. Yeah. But it's I love what podcasts have done, and but documentaries are documentaries and sports films are where I love to live. Yeah. Animation to a point, but documentary sports films.
They don't need the costumes in animation.
No, it's they can base it on our costumes. Maybe. But so they don't need costumes.
So what are your favourite few other podcasts to check out?
Podcasts. I've just started listening to The Canon, which is a great. If you've heard of Wolf Pop, Wolf Pop have got loads of really, really good podcasts. The Canon is two film critics discussing which films deserve to be in the canon. Yeah. Brilliant. That one of the first episodes was they put forward Goodfellas.
Oh no.
Right. Yeah. And if I sat there and went, well, there's no way anyone could argue against Goodfellas being a great film.
Sure.
Boy, was I wrong. And I have to admit, it did almost change my mind. Yeah. So that was great. I love How Did This Get Made, which is another film one with Paul Scheer. That's just about really good bad films. Like any Nick Cage film, basically.
Excellent.
WTF. Yeah. And the one that I know you like and that I like is Stone Cold Steve Austin. But that's just to feed the small child.
Well, there's a whole topic there, but okay, excellent. Well, we've done 53 minutes now.
That's good.
I think that's.
Well, when you do your WWE roundtable with that,
Yeah.
I'll happy.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, and thanks, Jeremy, for coming on.
Thank you for having
Let's
me.
go back to talking like normal people now.
Fine.
See you later.